In all the noise and fury around elections, have we all forgotten about Manipur? Welcome to another edition of the Dhavas of Democracy, our election road trip that began in Kanyakumari and is traveling all the way to Kashmir. But it's been exactly a year yesterday since the internal strife erupted, the internal war, some would say, erupted in Manipur. We did spend some time on the ground in Manipur, but not as much as I would have liked. On the program today, we'll be talking to somebody who's an academic by training but actually embraced politics. He stood for elections as a Congress candidate, perhaps in an attempt to see if that would bridge the gap within Manipur, whether that could repair broken hearts and divisions. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. As I said on the program today, we're looking at the forgotten headline of Manipur. It's been exactly 1 year since a kind of veritable breakdown between the Kuki and the Meitei community first erupted. From our trip to Manipur, we can confirm to you that people who belong to one community are not traveling to regions that are dominated by the other community. There is a complete division between the Meiteis and the Kukis. The division is de facto, it's not drawn on a map, but it is drawn across, in a sense, a line across the hearts of people. What can be done? What should be done? Let's introduce our guest on the program today. Professor Bimol Akoijam is with us. As I mentioned, he's an academic by training, but he is somebody who stood as a Congress candidate in this election to perhaps see if that could change anything. Thank you. And before we look at what has changed, if anything has changed at all after a year, why did you decide to enter electoral politics?
Thank you first of all, Burka, for having me here. You know, people say that intellectual must speak truth to the power, and that is, I suppose, I've been doing for decades, writing in newspaper and giving lectures or attending public meetings and giving speeches, sometimes lobbying with people in power to implement some programs or certain actions to be taken. But I realized that it's almost like dancing on the wing. It's on the periphery. It doesn't work. And then as I watch this tragedy gets unfolded, I become more and more desperate. And I just wanted to make my voice hear, which I suppose I represent ordinary people's pain and suffering and frustrations. All of that, I also share it as a common citizens and ordinary citizens. So I thought that I will enter directly into the realm of the political and then see whether this voice can be heard. That's why I decided to join.
And how,
If the
and
things
how was the
were,
experience?
I must add, Varka, if the things were normal, I would have loved to be in my profession, which is in my blood, with my students doing research and teaching them. I would have loved to do it, but I'm compelled to, go into this domain. That's the way it is.
And do you believe that anything has changed after these elections? Do you believe the elections helped to showcase what the media had stopped reporting?
No, no, no. In fact, with due respect to states like Bihar, when I was a research student in my student days in the late 80s and early 90s, we get to hear about boot capturing in Bihar and stuff like that. Nalini Singh reporting on those events. uh, and Manipur have similar kind of experience, particularly in the reserve constituencies in the preceding elections. But this is for the first time that you see unprecedented violence of boot capturings and proxies and, beating up people, threatening election agents, and all these kinds of violence have happened in the Central Valley, right in the Imphal city itself. So it's very unfortunate and alarming. I suppose that's a reflection of the lawlessness that we have in this state for a year or so now.
Well, the fact is that there cannot be control in a state where young people have arms in both communities. Did the fact that both Meiteis and Kuki civil society have arms manifest itself in this election campaign?
Yeah, that's for sure. There are a lot of gun firing happens. Two of my election meetings were disrupted because of the gun firing, and people were asked. Particularly, it's very interesting that I am the only candidate who have been targeted in the inner parliamentary constituencies. People try to force me to withdraw from elections, and all these kinds of violence have happened in the hill, in the reserve constituency, in the outer Manipur also. We had instances of gun firing in the meeting and so on. So I mean, we are like a civil war with people, civilians and non-state elements armed to the teeth, roaming around freely and engaging in gunfights. It's a strange thing that a country like India has allowed, almost like a Rwandan or a Yugoslavia like civil war for almost a year now. I mean, that's unprecedented.
You say that a country like India has allowed it, but you've also called Biren Singh, the chief minister, a scapegoat. Why do you call him a scapegoat?
See, the thing is that there's something called a unified headquarters, which is popularly called the unified command, which is looking after the security issues and law and order, which is not in the hand of the chief minister. The chairman is being appointed and ostensibly under the instruction of the command of the union government. And Mr. Amit Shah said on the floor of the parliament that the CM is cooperating. So my suspicion is that the CM may not be actually in charge of the situation. Many instances are there. He ordered a bus to travel to Churachandpur, and reportedly the CRPF refused to go beyond certain point. And similarly, the bus that traveled under his command did not cross Kangla Tombi because the Assam Rifles, which is under the union government, refused to cooperate. So if a constitutional authority, which is under the Indian Constitution of Article 163, chief minister of a state cannot have that kind of authority, then what is he? What kind of power he is exercising? All these factors have led me to believe that he is being put up as a scapegoat, so that Mr. Modi and Amit Shah do not get the blame directly for the failure of the Indian state to rein in this violence and restore normalcy in Manipur.
But when it comes to institutions, whether the Assam Rifles or the Manipur Police, what is really dangerous is that depending on which member of the community you're in, you look at the institution with suspicion. So you've seen members of the Meitei community take on the Assam Rifles. You've seen members of the Kuki community take on the Manipur Police. And that is, how can you enforce law when law enforcement agencies, when men and women in uniform, depending on which community you're in, look at you with suspicion?
Yeah, Barkha, first of all, if we hold back these community dimensions a little, but let's look at an institutions. When the institution like the police is not able to function, and it's been splitted on communal line, it shows that the state has collapsed at one level. And particularly the armed forces and the Assam Rifles has its own legacy. So even the regular army, that there's a loss of trust among sections of the population. That's a very unfortunate development when the institution like the army, the paramilitary, and the police does not function or does not enjoy the trust of the people. That itself is an indication that the people don't trust the state. And when you don't have the state, when the state doesn't have that kind of a trust in this populace, it becomes dangerous for a democracy and for a republican order. And I think I look at it in this fashions. That's the way the officials should have handled this image. They should have tried to build trust with the population rather than presenting themselves as siding with one community or the other in this conflict. I think it's the utter responsibility of the officers who are in charge of these forces, as well as the government, both in Delhi and Imphal, to ensure that the state institutions enjoy the trust of the people and they're able to function effectively and efficiently as they should be.
We saw the CBI just submit a report related to a video that first showed us women at the epicenter of this horrible internal war, as you call it, and these were women who had been sexually assaulted on camera. The CBI has been scathing about the role of the Manipur Police. Did you have a chance to look at that? And if so, what do you say?
I have a look at that, but I have no doubt that the Manipur Police has collapsed as an institution, as a functional institution. In fact, people see that police has sided with the Meiteis, but you should remember that police in Churachandpur is accused of being sided with the Kukis right from the day one. So the Manipur Police has been splitted. So is the bureaucracy in some sense on communal line. I mean, that is nothing to be happy about. As a functioning republican democracy, we cannot allow institution like police to be communalized to that extent and allowed to be dysfunctional. I think rather than jumping and then saying that the police has been siding with X community or Y community, we should be worried that the institution of the state has collapsed. I mean, that should be the concern for all of us. And then how to ensure that the police becomes functional. And what are the
Mm.
ways to talk about it? I think that's the way we should head, I mean, look at this moment.
You're a prominent member of the Meitei community. If you had to write a roadmap for how to build bridges between the two communities, is it still possible? Is it still possible at this juncture, or are the personal divisions too deep? Because even at the height of the crisis, I would meet Meiteis who'd say some of my best friends are Kukis, and the other way around. Are people still saying that, or have people stopped saying that?
No, first of all, I think we also producing a particular kind of discourse which to me seems like justifying and consolidating the divide. We must not forget that the Nagas and the Kukis have killed each other much on larger scale than the present crisis. And they have slaughtered each other and destroyed places of worship and villages, but still they're back to living together. And so is in South Asia, for thousands of years, there has been caste animosities, but we still dream about living together. And there are Muslims and Hindus fought over partitions, and it's remnant, vestigial violence we have seen, but we still live together. But I think that in that sense, as long as we are a member of the same country, we are the same citizens, I think one should not insist that we cannot live together, and there should be a way to find it
No, no,
out.
I very much hope that we can all live together. That is
Yeah,
my
yeah,
hope.
it is possible. I mean, at the moment, it might look difficult. जो हिंदी में कहता है ना, मुश्किल जरूर है, लेकिन नामुमकिन नहीं है. That's the attitude that I have. It may be difficult at this moment, as it seems, but we should not give up. It's not impossible. We have lived together for so long as a member of the same society and member of the same country. Why shouldn't we be able to bridge the gap again once more?
So what is the way forward? It's been a year. It's been a year. The country has got distracted. There's an election on. There's an election. There was an election in Manipur as well. But it's almost as if it's a lingering. It's now a lingering, prolonged conflict. The wounds may not be raw, but they've not healed either.
One of the first thing that I have noted, which is unprecedented in the scale and the nature of the violence that we experience in Manipur, is what I would call the complicity of the Indian state through its inaction. In the partition, we have shifted population of one community from one area to another community and bifurcated. You have commissions to divide this subcontinent into Pakistan, Muslim area, and the Hindu areas, and so on. I think the Indian state is allowing the similar kind of things, a reenactment of partitions within its courtyard, backyard. Population have been shifted
But
out of some
why?
areas.
But why? Well, what is the motive according
No,
to
no,
you?
no.
Why? Why would the
That
state?
is what I'm saying. Let me complete this one. This is something that people like you must investigate. Why is it the population have been shifted out of one area rather than protecting and ensuring that their property has been protected? After shifting out the population, what the state has done is right under their nose. These properties have been allowed to be vandalized, plundered, and occupied by usurpers on the one hand, and in certain areas such as in Kumujambalaikai in Churachandpur, after the Meiteis have been shifted out, that place have been reduced to dust. It becomes a playground, as if you are trying to erase any sign of Meitei settlement in that place. All these things are happening right under the nose of the administrations in the presence of the police and the armed forces. And that is why I'm calling the complicity of the Indian state. I think this is something very serious that the rest of the country, rather than jumping into the bandwagon of defending Meiteis as Hindus or tribal as Christians and so on, I think we should be looking at more of the institutionals and whatever ideological and lawfulness that we can define our civilized existence. I think that should be the worrisome part that we must focus.
Let me in the end ask about the one fault line that has never, or one disagreement that gets vociferously debated, whether the Meitei community should get scheduled tribe status. You have been in favor of that. Could you explain why?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's a small community and there is a deeper anxiety among the Meiteis about, their own existence. And I think they need certain constitutional protections, and the best constitutional protections at the moment, given the system, is to enlist them as part of the scheduled tribe. But it must be done, by also simultaneously opening a dialogue with the other ST communities in the state, because there is an anxiety among them. We must also dialogue. A dialogue must be initiated so that each other can understand each other's own anxieties. And I think some of the anxieties of our ST communities is in some sense misleading, because even if in the Nagaland you have among the scheduled tribe, advanced tribe versus, backward tribes, there are different schemes. So even if Meitei has been enlisted as scheduled tribe, there are ways in which certain anxieties of the other ST community can be addressed. So I believe that, at the end of the day, Barkha, my belief is that we must talk. We must have this capacity to engage in dialogue, to understand each other. This is true for all human relationship, whether it is friendship, husband and wife, student and teacher, or colleagues in the office. You need to talk and have dialogue. That's the only way to go forward. I think Manipur issue can also be resolved. But for that to happen, the state must rein in the violence, and the writ of the state should work. That's a precondition. That's a precondition I would insist.
I want to end by asking you to describe what the situation in Manipur is today. Is it as impossible for a Meitei to go into an area where the Kukis live and vice versa? Is it as much of a de facto division as it was when one was able to report some months ago? Or have things improved somewhat? What is the situation on the ground according to you?
I think, it is more or less the same, except for an additional element. I suppose people are getting tired, and then there's the fatigue will set in now, and then I mean, hopefully that fatigue should lead to a desire to talk. I mean, I think how long you can get angry all the time, Even Amitabh Bachchan, as an angry young man, has his own period to end. He's no longer an angry young man. So that every period has its own time. I suppose that, but the bad, the bad part is that the state is justifying this. It is allowing. I can't believe that the national highway is not still cleared. Meiteis are traveling. Most of them can't afford airplane, but they are forced to travel by aeroplane, because the national highway is blocked, because in certain areas there are Kuki settlement and so on. And it is absolutely nonsense that people from Churachampur has to fly from Aizol or from Silchar. I think the state must enforce, its own authority to make sure that some of these administrative aspects are taken care of, and then do the necessary grievances. That you should remember that the tribal as well as the Meiteis have historical and structural grievances. People tend to think about the ST whenever we think about grievances. Meiteis have seriously, historical sense of injustice and structural issues that Meiteis also have it. I think that must be addressed, just as we address all other grievances of the people. I think the state must take initiative. I hold the state responsible for the mess, and therefore I also expect them to take the primary role for way forward for a peaceful, normal life in my home state.
Well, all I can say is we hope for peace. What else can we do? If politics helps in building bridges, so be it. If civil society helps in building bridges, so be it. But you're absolutely correct in saying that there can be you need the state as an enabler and the authority of the state to work, and for arms to be taken out of the hands of those who should not have them in either community, including young people who should be in school. So a lot to talk about, Professor Akoijam, but I hope you're getting some time to recover from the electoral campaign. Thank you for talking to us,
Thank you.
and we promise to not take our eye off this issue. Thank you very much, and we'll follow up with you again soon. Thank you, sir, and take care.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. And that brings us to the close of another edition of the Dhabas of Democracy. We are traveling from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, bringing you all of the important issues, voices from the ground, the news that matters, and the news that matters to you. Thank you for watching. Take care. We're at the Indian mainland's southernmost tip in Kanyakumari, the confluence of the Bay of Bengal, the Arabian Sea, and the Indian Ocean. It is from here that we're beginning our big road trip to the heart and the soul of India, Dhabas of Democracy. That's all about traveling thousands of kilometers to look at the food, the fun, the festivity, the flavors of this election, but also, of course, to tell the stories of you, the people, of we, the people. At Mojo Story, we have always gone to where the story is. It could be the battlefields of Israel and Gaza, it could be the conflict zone of Manipur, or it could be the sorrow and the tragedy of COVID. We think of all of you as members of our community, of our family. So, I'm urging you and requesting you today to help us tell your stories and our stories. So do become a Mojo member, support and power our storytelling, but also get first access to our big interviews, our special ground reports, our town